Good morning. I want to remind you guys, when you come on a Google Meet, it's a little different from Zoom. Sometimes, like we just saw there, sometimes you're not muted automatically when you come in, so just be careful of that in the future. But I'm glad everybody was able to come in this morning. Glad to see everybody. Lots of faces with cameras on. I love it. All right, so I was scheduled to have Rusty Moore with ADT come in. Looks like something's come up for him. We'll have him in later. But this is a way, you guys know things are getting a little tighter now. Everybody notice things are getting a little tighter now. And that's a way for you guys to make a little extra money and help your clients out at the same time. Just a cool little thing you can do. And Rusty gives you money to just introduce your buyers to ADT. And if he installs a system for them, you get money. So it's kind of cool. All right. So, and they get a bunch of features and stuff. It's a kind of a win-win. So I'll let Rusty tell you all about that at another time. So what we're going to talk about today, you guys have been following the news and seeing the updates on this. It looks like the lawsuits are going in a way that is going to result in NAR still fighting it, I guess, to some degree, but it's going to result in no requirement to offer buyers compensation, cooperating broker compensation on the MLS. So let's hear some reactions to that. What do you guys think? But I will remind you of this. Right now, the rule is that you have to offer $1. The new rule is that you don't have to offer anything. How many of you guys are offering $1? How often are you seeing $1? So you kind of take it with that grain of salt as well. It's not the end of the world crashing around you, but we'll see how that goes from here. So what do you guys, what are your general impressions of this? Anybody?
What's the purpose of it?
There was a huge lawsuit, a $44 billion lawsuit claiming that every seller who's ever sold shouldn't have had to pay the buyer's commission. They're saying that sellers shouldn't pay for a buyer's side agent, or shouldn't be required to pay for a buyer's side agent. There are lots of things that this kind of opens up to. Why do sellers pay? I can't wait for the lawsuit of why sellers pay for title insurance for a buyer's property. You know, there's that argument too. And as you guys know, half the country, the buyer pays for it. You know, a lot of you came from different places where the buyer pays for it. Buyer pays for it. Some of you, like in Maryland, I know, for example, because we had agents from there, you can only close with an attorney. You got to pay them pretty good fees. There's different places where you do different things, and I wonder, you know, there's going to be lawsuits about anything. It's a great way for lawyers to make money. So, but any other impressions? Any other thoughts or questions about this?
Yeah, Ryan. My question is, okay, so some of them has settled the lawsuits. Mm-hmm. Who's going to pay for this? Are the agents? I mean, my understanding is that NAR is going to raise our dues for 4 years. It's something they're talking about, and it's going to be $400 a year to cover the lawsuits.
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know what NAR is going to do about this. They haven't settled yet. So the people who have settled are Keller Williams, right. Remax, Realogy, which is Anywhere Real Estate, which mm-hmm. owns Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Sotheby's, Corcoran, amongst others. It's the traditional brokerages that had money to pay for this kind of stuff because they charge the agents. So yeah, of course the money comes from. It's going to come from us eventually, right? There's no such thing as free money. But some of you guys have actually paid into this with your previous brokerages. Yeah, and so there's a big thing too, Jerry, which is interesting because we're in Florida, of not being required to be NAR members. I don't know if you guys saw that part of the lawsuit, but Remax, part of their settlement was that they don't have to be part of NAR anymore. Well, or they can't force people to be part of NAR. But in Florida, if you want MLS, you have to be part of your local board of realtors, which puts you in with the FAR and the NAR. So I don't know where that's going. That's a great mystery to me where it's going to go in Florida. But in a lot of states, And some of you guys are dual licensed in other states. I believe Georgia's one of them where you can just join the MLS. They just have a statewide MLS and you pay for that, but you don't pay for a local board. So where is that going with board membership? I don't know. I know a lot of you guys board, local real estate boards are similar to HOAs in a lot of cases, where a lot of people wouldn't be members of them if they didn't have to. And other people love them and find the value in them. So it's what would happen to the board, the membership, the fees of the board and all that kind of stuff, and the services of the board if something were to happen with that here in Florida. I don't think that affects us right now because of the rules that we have. That I get agents from other states who are like, really, we have to join the board to get the MLS? I can't believe it. So, to us, those of us who are licensed and working in Florida our whole careers, we think that's just the way it is. So the answer is I don't know, but the money's going to come from somewhere. Mm-hmm. Any other? Let's go. Angie's hand was up.
Daryl raised his hand first. You want to go, Daryl? Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, I have my kind of own opinions on it. I think it's ridiculous overall. It's like there needs to be some type of rules in place and some type of standard. And that kind of helped us to make things a little bit more smooth for the consumers on both ends. So, but I guess my opinion doesn't matter, right? Because it's already done. But I think, ways that we can definitely capitalize on it are to be able to show our value and prove our value to clients on the buyer side in order to get them to pay us our commission. So I think that's an important part. And I think it could be a way that we could make our industry become more professional, especially buyer agents. A lot of people just use whoever they want as a buyer agent, someone they met at an open house that they really don't know how experienced they are, or someone that's a friend of theirs or a friend of a friend. So this may be a way to get more experienced agents helping buyers, which would be nice. But also I see the setbacks of buyers wanting to represent themselves and buyers wanting to just use the listing agent and all the issues that come with that. I was going to ask you about being a member of NAR and Stellar MLS, because that agent that I've been talking to, Rich Feldstein, he's been a broker since like the year I was born, for a very long time. And he said that has Stellar MLS, but is not a member of NAR. Is there some grandfathering in, or is he incorrect?
He is what's called a Thompson broker then, if he does that. They can't use FAR/BAR forms. They can't say they're realtors. They can't whatever, but you can have that. And if your brokerage is that, he's a sole proprietor. I saw his license, and yes, his license number is older than mine. Mm-hmm. But it is 6 digits. We have a couple of people with us that are 5 digits. But most of you are 7 digits. Yeah, Thompson broker can do that, but they can't call themselves realtors, and they can't do anything but access the MLS just like an appraiser or something. Mm-hmm. So
as a brokerage, do you see benefits to us not being in NAR? Like, is that something that could be coming, with us, or could be a benefit to different agencies, like how Redfin and stuff are getting out?
There are benefits and drawbacks to that. And one of them is the FAR/BAR forms. I think is probably the most important thing that they have that you would miss by doing that. And the only benefit is the money. So, and you say NAR, but that's also FAR and the local board. So mm-hmm. That's everything. When you pay, you guys, if you don't know, when you pay the local board, you're $700 a year, or whatever it is now. It keeps going up. You're also paying, 220 of that to NAR and 200 of it to FAR and the rest of the local board. So you're paying all of that stuff with that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there, the things that, the things that we've always, as realtors, hung our hats on, the code of ethics and the cooperation and all this kind of stuff, the things that we've always said that we love about being realtors, because that's what you say, that stuff just wouldn't exist. You're real estate agents. How it affects you also is arbitration will be done like commercial, where procuring cause is procuring cause, and it's settled by a judge. There's none of these boards, which is, I think it's probably a good thing. There's no hard feelings, or it's hard to find 5 realtors across whatever board you're in who don't know of you or somebody from your brokerage who they like or don't like or whatever, and they don't recuse themselves and they don't, all that stuff. You can look at them and like a jury selection, if you see somebody on there that you've had a hard time with before, you can't get rid of them. I don't know if you guys have done. I see it because of all of you guys. Every time you guys have to go through it, I have to go through it. So, but the arbitration process has been, I gotta say, with the local boards, has been fair, but it's just more cut and dry legally. As far as who showed the property, who procured the contract, and that's procuring cause. It doesn't matter, these arbitration things. If you get the buyer to come in and say, "Oh, I really wanted to work with Angie, I just didn't like that Daryl," then Angie's going to win with these local boards, because that's how realtors think. But a judge is going to say, "Who wrote the contract? Who was a procuring cause?" And I don't care if you like Daryl or not. He wrote the contract and brought the buyer. So that's one of the differences too. So some of these things, these self-policing things that we have with the local boards will go away. So there's all kinds of stuff, but that's not a thing yet. So I don't even want to really get into it. In Florida, that's not a thing yet, because it's still required by if MLS says that you have to belong to the board, maybe that's another lawsuit down the line that we'll be talking about. But if MLS says you have to belong to the board, then you got to belong to the board. And if you're a Thompson broker, which we considered at one point, but you can't be a Thompson broker and be a regular broker as well. You can't have a board member brokerage and a Thompson brokerage. We do have a referral brokerage. You can do that, but you can't have a Thompson brokerage. Otherwise, everybody, I think, a lot of people would do it. So that's why. But you can't call yourself a realtor. You can't use the FAR/BAR forms, and there's something else you can't do. So there's that. Daryl, you were definitely next.
Okay. Maybe I'm not reading it correctly, the lawsuit and everything going on, the legal. My listing agreements are between myself, the broker, you, FRI, and the seller. Okay. It's my responsibility, or it's up to me to choose what commission I'm paying any buyer's broker. The seller's already agreed upon the commission with the broker that I work for. So I don't understand exactly what the thing is with the legal. Yes, the seller's paying it, but they've already agreed to pay me my full commission, and I'm the one picking who or what I choose to pay the buyer's broker.
Correct.
So I don't understand exactly. Maybe you can explain it better to me. Am I reading it incorrectly?
No, you're absolutely right, and that's why it might not be a big deal at all. Like I said, it technically makes $1 difference. If you put something on MLS before, you had to offer $1 or a penny or whatever it was. So, money wise, it doesn't make a difference. It's just, it is the requirement that MLS has to offer buyer compensation, which for some reason people think that people are going to stop doing, but they're not. When you explain it properly to your client. Okay. I'm more worried about you guys on the buyer side. And we'll talk about that in a second. On the seller side, when you explain it properly to your client, say, look, yeah, we can do it for $0. And we're not going to have as many showings, right? Even though we are realtors, and we've talked about this before. I always love talking to you guys about realtor ethics, right? You guys, if you have two identical houses in one of these new subdivisions where every house is the same, and they're four houses apart on the other side of the road, is the exact same model, same color, same everything, and they're both for sale and everything's the same, and one of them offers 3% and one offers 0, which one are you showing? Well, you better show them both, right? Because you're a realtor and you're ethical, and it doesn't matter how much money you make. But which one are you saying, oh boy, look at that backyard on this. Remember you guys said you wanted that backyard? Oh my gosh, this one's so nice. It's just a better part of the neighborhood than it is 4 houses down. So the realtors we're ethical, but we're also realistic, and you're going to get a lot more people look at it if you offer 3%, right? The more people you have look at something, the better price you're going to get, right? So that is what we know to be a fact, but it is our duty to show every house, regardless of what our compensation is. We're not supposed to think about that. It's not realistic, but that's our duty. We all know that. We all know that there are a lot of realtors out there who are, that need every penny they can get, and they'll favor a 3 over a 2.5, which is why we try to talk our sellers into offering 3. That's why we try to talk them into 6 instead of 5, right? So we can offer more money to the other side, and so we can make a few extra bucks ourselves on the listing side. So that's what we do. Now on the buyer side, you guys, there's been a raving lunatic on here for almost 9 years now telling you guys to get buyer broker agreements. I had dinner last night with, I think, the #1 realtor in Orlando. Some of you guys know him. He's kind of a pain in the butt. And he told me he has never, ever had a buyer brokerage agreement. And after we talked for about 15 minutes, he said, I'm going to start getting buyer brokerage agreements with this. So it's something that's going to be happening because you got to protect yourself. Who's next?
One more thing. I'm sorry. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
go.
That's actually part of my listing agreement, and I might be doing it wrong all these years, but part of my listing agreement is actually as my seller is signing the agreement form, I let them know, okay, if you don't choose, well, this is actually before they sign everything because I'm trying to talk them into choosing me instead of someone else. And I tell them exactly how the commission structure works. I say, hey, if you don't choose me, at least look on the agreement that you're having, that you're signing with another agent, and see how much they're willing to give to the other agent.
Mhm.
That's a super, super important thing to let them know, because there's a lot of agents out there that are only paying 1.5, 2%, whatever. I let them know that they're getting the best marketing because I'm going to be paying 2.5 or 3% rather than a lower listing or a lower commission to a buyer's agent. That's super important to tell them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you need to go through that with them anyway. And how many of you guys, if you just send somebody a listing agreement, they say, wait, it's 6% plus 3%, it's 9%. Like, no, the 3 comes from, I mean, you have to educate people. They don't know. They're not in our business. They also don't think it through enough. Daryl, where your point is, they don't think it through enough to say, I will attract more buyers if I offer more money to their agents to come see the property, right? Because they're gonna be more motivated to do that. They will put them at the top of the list if they're getting 3% versus 1.5 or 2% or something like that, and they're going to try to drive them away from that property. Guys, I think you guys all know that I'm not exaggerating when I say that realtors will drive them away, point them away, steer them away from your 1.5%, 2% offerings of cooperation.
So I would use this lawsuit actually as a projectile for my listing agreement and let them know about this lawsuit and what's happening.
Yeah.
Get more listings from it. Don't make it a bad thing, make it a good thing.
That's what I'd say about absolutely everything. Interest rates going up, make it a good thing. Interest rates coming down, make it a good thing. They need to do it now. Okay, I don't know who's next. I'm going to go left to right across my screen. Natalie. You're muted, I think, if you're talking.
The one thing people have been saying is with VA loans, you can't ask a VA buyer to pay a commission. That's going to be an issue. I think we deal with a lot of VA over here. Or I do in Brevard County.
So that's what I know you do. So that's what that is one thing I'm looking to find out. I believe that I've told you guys you can't negotiate. It was an ethics rule that you cannot negotiate commission once MLS offers compensation. You can't write 3% next to your name on the contract or something if that's not what's offered in the thing. I think that is going to go away, and I think that you're going to be able to ask for your commission as part of the deal. That's how they do it in commercial. There's been a rule against that with MLS because there's always been an offer of compensation. I'm going to see where that goes. That's a very good point, Natalie. And so here's what's going to happen, guys. So think about this from an appraisal standpoint. This house is worth $400,000. My neighbors, everybody's selling for $400,000, let's say, right? But they've been paying 6% commission, and I'm not offering any commission to the buyer side. But my house is still worth theoretically $400,000. The seller just got 3%, 2.5% equity built in, an additional 3 or 2.5%. Does that make sense, everybody? What I'm saying? So what they're going to net 2.5, 3% more theoretically if they don't do a buyer's side. So that's an interesting thing. So where does that other 2.5, 3% come from? And I think that we're going to be able to write it into contracts now. Like Clarence can tell you that's what we do with commercial contracts. They have if they don't offer a co-broker, we take something off market, something like that, just like you guys do with off market properties. That's a good example. If something's off market, you find something for somebody. In commercial, we write in there all the time. There's a paragraph you write in there that says, seller recognizes Florida Realty Investments was procuring cause in this deal and will pay a 3% commission or whatever they're paying, 6% or whatever it is. So that is actually a paragraph in a commercial contract if an attorney writes it. So there's something to think about as far as that goes. I don't know where that's going, Natalie, but I think that we're going to be able to write in our own commissions eventually. I don't know. I'm going to get to the bottom of that. I don't know yet, but that's a great question. And yes, there are people, but not only that, but how are you going to do an FHA deal if they can only come up with 3.5% down or 5% down? Now they got to come up with 8% or 7.5% to pay you, and they get what's the lender going to do with that? What's a buyer going to do with that? First time home buyer, right? Okay. I don't know the order, Tammy.
So do we have to do anything differently than we're doing now? I mean, do we have to tell the seller? I mean, what we do works.
No, you go through the listing agreement with them and just go through it with them. They don't, I mean, it's a $1 difference. They've never had to
Right.
offer more than $1. They've never had to do anything. You can see that on the listing agreement. It says if no compensation is offered, it can't be on MLS. You can have listings that aren't on MLS, perfectly legal, right? So that's it.
So we don't have to really draw their attention to any of this. We
No.
can keep doing what we've been doing.
No, you don't have to. No, you're offering them, but you should have gone over this, like what Daryl's talking about. You should have been going over these listing agreements the whole time, because I'm sure they had questions about this. Why does it say 6% and then 3% more, right?
Right.
And you
No,
explain to them, no, that's just what I offer.
Right.
The other side. And some of
Exactly.
you guys do the variable commission, where if I do both sides myself, it's only 4%, right? And you've been through the ups and downs and this and that with them. Guys, I want to reiterate one more time. When you do that, do not put if agent Tammy Pipkin, or don't use Tammy, use your own name. If agent Tammy Pipkin sells both sides, gets both sides, represents both parties, don't use FRI if broker, because that way if Tammy gets half and then Daryl gets half, it's only going to be 4% if they wanted to push that. Legally, that's what they would do, because it is a brokerage relation. It is a brokerage relationship, not an individual. So put if agent Tammy Pipkin gets, finds a buyer also, it'll only be 4%, whatever you want to put, but make sure it's you name yourself, not just the brokerage. Okay. Tammy, do you have another question on that?
No, I think that's it.
Just explain it to him, Tammy, like you always have. It doesn't.
Yeah, but we don't have to say, oh, there's been a big lawsuit and now you don't have to offer commission on the others. We don't even need to go there, right?
Has anyone ever gotten the question, what if I don't offer the other side anything? Has anybody ever gotten that question?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Yeah, Angie, you have?
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about now too, is that usually in my listing presentation, when I'm going through that page on commission, the total commission is 6%. It gets shared with the buyer's agent. The 3 goes in here on this line. And in order to be on the MLS, we need to offer buyer agent compensation. So I do usually say that as part of my listing presentation, that it is required to offer compensation to the other agent. Of course, I don't say you could do $1. I just say it's required. So that line's going to have to come out of my repertoire of scripting. But what I did want to ask you related to that is, do you think we need to talk to people who I've already said that to, that I have current active listings with, and let them know that this is an option now for 0? Or do you think I'm good to just keep moving forward?
You're good. The listing agreement you had with them and the law at the time says on there, if you don't offer anything, you're not. So your agreement with them still holds. It
Okay.
doesn't matter that they change the rules now. You have a signed agreement with them at that time.
Okay.
It's not
Perfect.
retroactive to whatever. So your agreement with them is at 2.5%. You do not have to adjust that, or whatever, 3%, whatever it was for the cooperating side. You do not have to adjust for that.
Are the listing agreements going to change?
I would imagine that line's going to come off. Yeah. Because there's a line on there that says if you don't offer anything, you can't have it on MLS. But guys, if you just explain it like you always have, Angie, you got to drop a couple words out of your presentation and say, this is what we're offering the other side to attract buyers, right? The more we offer, the more attractive we are. It's that simple, right? Even though we are ethical realtors and we show every property with the equal enthusiasm, if it fits their needs. Yes, Christina.
Hey, how are you doing? How's everybody doing?
Awesome.
Okay, so no more commissions for buyer's agents, right? The sky is falling. We're not going to get paid anymore. We all got to go work at Publix. I mean, actually, Publix would be a good job. I mean, they have like insurance,
Pretty good.
free pub subs. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. It's really interesting, and like, you know, like what Tammy was saying. I mean, like, you really don't even have to address it. I feel like it's a lot of really like clickbaity headlines right now to kind of drive traffic to places, you know, that are reporting on it. And it's not that much difference, you know, between $1 and $0, right? I am surprised at like the size of the settlements. And I guess I'm talking to some other agents at different brokerages, a couple things. So number one, I was hearing like maybe the future would be decoupling of the MLS from the boards of the local associations. I'm curious about the buyer broker because I haven't been doing them either. But in light of this, you know, I'm kind of looking at that a little bit more seriously. And then that kind of makes me wonder about like possible, I don't want to get into the realm where it's like I'm discriminating, you know what I mean? Or that appearance, you know. I heard somebody say, okay, if they're not offering something before you show the property, like what you're saying with the for sale by owner, you send them an agreement and say, you know, would you pay me X, Y, Z? But I mean, I'm kind of thinking if you're going to be working with a buyer, to probably be consistent if you're requesting a certain number or a commission on that buyer. And you know, the VA question, that's a great question, right? Because you know, they can't pay a commission, they can't even pay the transaction fee. So I don't know, it's just interesting. I mean, I don't have like a really organized thoughts on it. I am curious if people are going to be doing the buyer broker, how they're going to be presenting that. Much like what everybody else was saying when I have a listing agreement and discussing the offers of compensation for the other agent, I'm always pretty specific. Hey, this is what we're going to be offering the other agent. And sometimes they do ask me, well, you're splitting that with the other agent, and I go, yes. Yeah, I'm just, so you're pro buyer broker agreement. Oh, also I heard another brokerage, somebody at another brokerage was telling me something that they were discussing was potentially including with the listing agreement, a document saying, if somebody didn't want to offer anything to the other agent, hey, I understand that this may potentially impact the number of showings and offers that I get by not offering a compensation. So this is my thoughts, but my question is, you know, what are your thoughts on the buyer broker? How are people going to be presenting that? What's the best way to structure that moving forward? Because I'm kind of like the guy you were saying before. I'm like, you know, they don't want to work with me. They don't want to work with me. But, you know, who wants to go show 10 properties and then they decide on a property where, you know, where there's no compensation and then you're working for free?
There's guys there. I don't know how you can be anti-buyer brokerage agreement. I've been all over it for the whole time I've been talking to you guys. As you guys know, I've bored you with it. About once a year, I go over the form, and I will do that again probably next week if you guys would like, and kind of show you how best I think best to present it. I don't think there's any anti-buyer brokerage agreement thing you can do, argument that you can make. If nothing else, you have it. I know a lot of you guys are not super strong salespeople, and you're afraid people will say no to you at that first meeting when you present that to them. Well, there you go. Good for you. Now you know that they're not dedicated to working with you like you are with them. You got to be a strong salesperson to do that. But it's also like Daryl said, and like I always teach you when I do it, you turn it into a positive. You show them I'm going to be dedicated to you. Most of that form says what I'm going to do for you, not what you're going to do for me. And then it just says I'm going to get paid. And you tell them, if they say, oh my gosh, 2.5%, I can't pay you that. Oh, well, the typical buyer, the typical cooperation or the typical MLS offer of compensation is at least 2.5%, which is true, right? Typically, if you go look at listings, typically they're going to be 2.5 or 3%. So yeah, and I do not like that form that the other broker.
You don't like that?
Well, you're admitting that realtors aren't ethical, and I thought that's what we were supposed to be. You're admitting, because there's no ethical argument for only showing higher compensation houses or showing them first. I mean, you can't. I get it, but you can't ethically justify that.
And in that same vein, I'm sorry. In that same vein, So if you don't have a buyer broker agreement, and let's say, because I kind of agree with you, I kind of feel like, somebody else I was talking to was saying like maybe this is something where other markets, maybe they'll embrace the zero offer of compensation more. I don't really feel like Orlando is going to be one of those markets. So I tend to agree with you. But let's say you don't have that buyer broker agreement, and there's let's say some big listing agent that are double signing their transactions a lot anyway and feels confident that they're going to be able to just continue doing that, doesn't do that, and you don't have the buyer broker agreement. Like, are we in that position where do we have to then show that house? And then if we don't, is that become an issue where we're opening up ourselves? You get where I'm going.
I have the perfect solution for you guys. You ready? Get them to sign a buyer brokerage agreement at 3% and tell the buyers, we're going to look, so you guys don't have to come out of pocket for this. We're going to prioritize listings that pay this for you. Now I'm completely ethical. I'm working on behalf of my buyer. I'm prioritizing listings that are at 3%, then 2.5%, and then on down the line. So my buyer doesn't have to come out of pocket.
If you don't have that, you have to still show the zero
Correct.
compensation.
Yeah, of course you do. Yes.
Yeah.
You're an ethical realtor, Christina. It's not about your pocketbook. It's about what's best for your client.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm.
We're
And the
never-
specifics of
we're never allowed to push the better compensation.
right, of course, and the specifics of it, like in terms of like the buyer broker agreement, I mean, you can kind of outline like what the minimum you're willing to work for is.
No. So put 3% on there. So this is
Right.
how we do this. And this is just, I'm thinking through this with you guys are. Put 3% on the buyer brokerage agreement, and then in the additional terms, right? Broker will prioritize listings that don't force the buyer to come out of pocket to pay. Or however you want to, we'll figure out a better way to word that. And we'll go over this next week on the buyer brokerage agreement.
Okay.
And we'll protect you guys in this way, because I have never seen that done. I'm just thinking about it, but that sounds like a great way around this to make sure that you're being ethical, and because you don't want your buyer to have to come out of pocket, and maybe they can't, right? So you put that on there, and they're going to do that. So not only are you doing the original purpose of the buyer brokerage agreement, so when this person stumbles into Angie's open house, she doesn't steal them from you. She's going to ask them, are you working with anybody? And they're going to say, there was this Christina lady, but, and well, did you sign anything with her? Oh, yeah, we signed this thing. Great. Have her call me. Right. Or if they say, well, we didn't sign anything. Well, great. Sign this contract. So
Ryan, do you tell the buyers that they've changed how compensation's working? No.
There's no
No.
reason to. That's not their concern. You have them sign a buyer brokerage agreement. This is what I get paid for my services. These are all the 20 things I'm going to do for you. These are all the things you said you wanted in
And
the
it's
house.
normally paid by the seller, correct? You
Yeah.
said that?
Oh yeah. It's still going to be normally paid by the seller. How many
Yeah.
of you guys think there's going to be zero compensation stuff out there?
I think we'll see some, but not a lot. I mean, there's always one or two idiots out there with like a
Now, you see the
$1.
$100 and the $5 and the $100 and the $1 and the this and that out there now. There's garbage out there now.
So here's I'm not for it or against it, but the argument that I'm hearing is that it's not enforceable. That the buyer broker agreements aren't enforceable.
It's not if you violate any of those terms on it. Okay. But it certainly is enforceable to get paid. Yeah, absolutely, it's enforceable to get paid with the broker. If you go through with a sale with them and there are no issues and nothing that causes them any harm, it's absolutely. Where you're hearing that is from other agents.
Right.
You can't stop Angie from stealing them if you neglected them. If they say, I called Chrissy, if this goes to arbitration, which may or may not exist in a year, if this goes to arbitration and Angie says, they say, well, Angie was there for me all the time. I tried to get Christina to go to that open house. I called her 3 times. She never answered. And Angie took care of us right away. And it was just great working with Angie. You're not going to, she's going to steal your client from your buyer broker agreement. But if you close the deal with them and they don't pay you the 2.5% that's on your agreement, or your 3% that's on the agreement, when you went over that with them, they have to pay you. That's a legally binding document between.
Does that involve you and Carissa having to do we have to then sue them, or what's the just arbitration process?
Typically, depending on the size of it, small claim court or whatever, it's real court.
Okay.
They don't go to the board. They're not members of the board. You can't get money out of a client at the board.
Yeah.
We're the only ones that are liable to the board.
Okay. Right.
Any other questions on it? So it's more like a commercial deal in that regard. You fight over the commission in front of that, but but you're not fighting over the commission. It's you with you have a signed agreement with a client. If the brokerage has a signed agreement with the client, so yes, we would be involved.
Yeah, but depending, what is the cap on small claims? Just
I think it's 15,000. Anybody know anything better than that? Does everybody think it's 15,000? I think it's 15,000.
but beyond that, we would have to retain an attorney and like sue them, right? I mean, I'm just trying to flesh it out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's the same thing really with a listing agreement as well, right? Like,
But typically, the losers pay legal fees.
right. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Who's got a hand? Oh, lots of hands up. Sorry. Mandy, and then Robin, and then I can't see. Oh, Jerry and Levette. Mandy, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think Jerry was up next, but
I'm sorry, guys. I can't tell what order they come in. Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, there's a couple of things that Steve and I have. Number one, just to let you know that I do serve on the grievance and the professional standards committee, and I've done that for about 7 years now. So we're looking that, there may be a little bit more cases coming forward there, and we do decide if it goes up to current cause or not also. We didn't make that decision, but Steve has a good point here.
Hey, just a question, Ryan. And I think I heard you say you're going to get into the buyer-broker agreement a little bit more next week. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. There's two options out there. One is a form that allows us to operate as transaction, and the other is a single agent. Which one is the best one to use as far as selling this concept to the buyer?
I always like transaction broker for everything, because it gives you so much more flexibility.
Okay.
And you never have to transition, which can be a difficult conversation with them. As you guys know, the difference between your duties as a transaction broker and that brokerage relationship versus a single agent, you don't have fiduciary duties, you don't have other stuff. So it gets complicated if you get to be a single agent and then you have to transition. We have a ton of agents out there that you can run into. As you see, very good. I see a bunch of multi-million-dollar producers on this phone call right now, who you're going to run into out there in the world. It helps to not have to transition. It helps if there's ever an issue about, well, Steve and Jerry knew about our divorce and they knew that I had to sell this house in 3 days, blah, 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 right? So, and then, I'm sure that they told the buyers and, all this stuff. If you don't have that relationship, you don't have to worry about that stuff. So I do like that in general. I'm not sure how big of a difference it makes. Definitely with listing agreements. I'm not sure how big of a difference it makes with buyer brokerage agreements. But if you do stumble onto Christina's listing, and then we're a transaction broker. Okay. And so you'd have to transition if there ever was a claim to happen. If there were to be a claim, you would have to you would want to have already transitioned to transaction broker.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
You bet. Rob, it's okay. Kind of gives me an order here. I think Robin was next, then Levette, and then one more. Go ahead, Robin, and then AJ. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out in the parking lot out in front of a house here. Okay, so my question is, in the villages, I can't necessarily get them to sign a brokerage agreement because they could indeed buy a home from a village's representative, and then they would technically be responsible to pay me.
Yes,
Correct?
they will if they sign an agreement with you.
Right.
Yes.
So I can't get a buyer brokerage agreement. No one will sign that here. Absolutely no one. And I wouldn't blame them because I've lost plenty of business to the villages. And also that document, if I'm not mistaken, does it dictate a specific property?
No, it says, it does not dictate a specific property. You could have it dictate a specific property, but it does not. No, it says, it kind of gives a summary of what they're looking for. It is very nondescript. It's very vague.
Yeah.
Property that they're looking for. These are the things they're looking for in a property. It's almost a way for you to show off that you've been listening to them and that you're ready to work with them and that's what they want to find. If not, if you find them something, how many clients do you start with that want to, especially like in the villages, they want a 3-2 in the, near Summerfield, and then they end up buying a 5-4 over on the complete other side of the villages, right?
Well, exactly.
So people don't know exactly what they want at the beginning. That's why it's really vague.
And
Right.
Robin, you could disclose that. You could make that as a disclaimer on the agreement too. If they want to buy a property at the village, however it is written there or known there, then they would be excluded from this agreement. So you
Right,
could,
but
then you're protected if it's something else.
can we alter that?
Yeah, oh
document?
yeah, there's
Because
additional terms.
Mhm.
There's
yeah,
additional
okay, because everyone says, don't touch the document, you know, whatever it
And
says on
additional
there.
Don't
Okay.
don't redline
Alright.
don't redline anything on the documents, guys, because they're all kind of legally. I mean, they're written by lawyers, the Florida Bar and the Florida Association of Realtors, and they're all so the legalese covers the other legalese bases. So don't just redline stuff on a contract, but you can do additional stuff. If you have any questions, I don't want you guys writing a bunch of legalese and therefores and thuses and thous and all that stuff.
Right.
If you have any questions on that, run it by us. And we've got attorney on retainer. Kathy will go through it if we need her to. I'll have Carissa approve anything just to cover your butt and my butt.
Okay.
So then anything that you're going to write that's not very basic stuff that we've done before, send it to us.
All right. So
We can't
So
practice
now-
law?
I
No,
have
no.
this huge YouTube following, and I would love to start to prepare them that I may come to them and say, okay, guess what? The seller's not going to pay. You may have to pay me for my services, and this is how it'll work. Is this an appropriate time to start to prepare our buyers?
I
Now,
wouldn't prepare them. I don't think this is going to be a big deal, Robin. Let's see how big
Okay.
of a deal it is. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I don't think you're going to see a market change in the offerings. I have not heard one person say, well, thank goodness now I can start not offering anything. I haven't seen that at all. But now I can save that dollar that I was offering before and not have to offer that to somebody. So I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. I certainly wouldn't. I don't think there's any reason to draw attention to it. It's a technical part of our industry. We're the only ones following this. Christina said that, that this is the thing for headlines and 55 million and 83.5 million and all this stuff. This is it's a big time for headlines for our industry. Nobody else cares, right?
Listen, we're all agents
cool.
and we're all on both sides of a deal. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's going to bite you in the butt if you're the listing agent, but at one point you might be the buyer's agent. So,
Right. Right, it's not going to help any listing agent either,
no.
right? Unless they talk the sellers into, give me all 6%. We won't offer the buyer. We don't offer the buyers anything. Just give me 6%.
I saw
So
that
I-
in forums where agents are like, if that's the case, then I'm just going to write it still for 6% and let them know the 6% is going to me because I'm going to probably be representing the buyer or whatever. So
And that's a possibility. Is there going to be more people just buying off of Zillow? And the NAR's argument here is that the system we have works well because buyers are represented. This is going to end up with fewer buyers being represented, and it's an absolute great case because we've talked about this before, and you guys, we've covered it today with the how ethical realtors are. When you get both sides of a deal. Don't even smile on this camera right now, but you guys know when you get both sides of a deal, your eyes get big and you're like, let's make this deal go through. And I thought I was going to make 18,000 on this client. Now I'm going to make 36,000 on this client. Right. And it happens and the eyes get big and then
would
something
never.
happens, a little thing happens with the roof or the something or whatever. And we'll make it work. The appraisal's a little off, something's a little off. We'll make it work. Right. Yeah, you have double liability. And if things go wrong, you just look bad. This is like hiring your brother to do the inspection, right? That's why you don't do that. It just looks really bad if something goes wrong. And buyers will not be as well represented. You guys represent your buyers better than if you just left it to the listing agent. Is that not right? And you listing agents, that's true too. You take better because if you have a listing, who is it? It's a valued client. It's a family member. It's a friend. It's somebody that you've worked with before and want to work with again, and you love them, and you send them cookies, and you send them your magazine from Reminder Media, and you send them this, you have a relationship. You don't have a relationship with that buyer. They came in off the street. Who's going to get better representation? The argument for having buyers agents, buyers brokers is it's rock solid. I mean, it is based in reality, which is that realtors are humans. They're not always 100% ethical. Which is the same thing we've been talking about the whole time about showing houses that are 3% versus 1%. All right, let's go back around. Mandy.
So I just had a thought. I don't know how far agents would go with this, but what if there are desperate listing agents, trying to just get listings and then they, share that they don't have to offer anything on the buyer's agent side.
That's going to happen. So
Yeah.
if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I know it's going to happen, but that's going to suck for
But
the
that's out there, man. Have you not seen these people that will just list your house?
Yeah.
They'll list
Yeah,
your house for $1,500. They'll list your house. They'll throw it on the MLS. I mean, that's
Yep.
already out there. And now, and it's really only a $1 difference. This might motivate some people to do it, but before they only had to do $1. They could have said, "I'll sell your house and only pay $1 to somebody else." I mean, so yes, that's absolutely going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
Makes it
it's
challenging for us agents that are willing to actually like, try to sell them to pay a 6%, to try to split that. It's going to be harder for us versus, they're like, if the seller's like, "Oh, you're going to give me 3, this person wants to charge me 6. It's just going to be so much harder.
you guys should all have in your possession at all times that list of 113 things or whatever that realtors do. And you should always be able to whip that out and say, this is what you're getting. These are the things, right? These are the things you're not going to get if you don't have one, right? So seriously, Google it. There's one that has 84 things and one that has 113 and one that has, there's all kinds of things that list, the 113 one obviously, rewords a couple of them, puts them on there twice. But there's a list of things that realtors do for you. Just Google it and have it on your possession, at all times is what I recommend. Because we've always had to defend our reputation and our value. Because people always say that. If you look at the comments on some of these settlement things, I read through some of the comments. Somebody came to my house and said it's going to cost me $32,000 to sell my $600,000 house, and I told them to go take a hike. There's always that person, right? So that don't think you guys do anything, and part of that is because you guys post what you post on social media. But I'm not going to get into that. But it's true. So yeah, you guys look like you have the best life ever. Everybody's jealous of you. Lavette, before Lavette starts, you guys need to start posting more when you're crying and when deals fall apart. That's what you need to post about. Lavette,
Set up the camera, start crying.
And follow the broke agent on Instagram, but don't reshare his posts.
Lavette, go ahead.
Yes. So I have never used the buyer's brokers agreement, neither did not now. Don't listen, Angie. She's my mentor. I should. But I have very good reason to do it now because I'm under contract because of an agent neglect to use the buyer's brokers agreement. She first contacted my seller, but she wasn't in communication. So when my seller reached out to me, I asked her if she was working with an agent. She said yes. I said, "Did you sign anything?" She said yes at first, and I sent her to the agent, but they checked and they didn't sign a buyer's brokers agreement. And as a result, I'm working on both sides, selling a house and buying another one. So yeah, it's always a good thing to use a buyer's brokers agreement. So my question is, when is this law going into effect? Is it?
I'm not 100% sure when this is. It's not law. It's just the rule that MLS. You don't have to offer compensation. I'm not sure. That's a great question. It can be anytime. But I do want to congratulate you on you're the first person to learn about the buyer brokerage agreement the easy way, which was getting a client out of it. Everybody else on here has cried because it's been the hard way. I've showed this person 22 houses, and then they went to an open house. The one day I was at church, they went to an open house and bought a house, or went to a new home builder, or they did whatever. It's usually you guys crying. So you found out, you learned your lesson in the good way. I always pray for you guys that may all your lessons be cheap ones, but yours was actually a winner. So good for you. But some other agent out there right now is crying, which is why you came to that conclusion that you do need to. You also could have come to it by the fact I tell you guys all the time, but that's another cheap way to learn. But we'll go over that next week. I don't know when this new rule kicks in. Does anybody know?
Until we hear from you again, we should just keep doing what we're doing.
No, you should start doing buyer brokerage agreements today.
No, not the buyer's brokers agreement, like the compensation.
Yeah, just wait. AJ was 20 years old when he raised his hand. AJ, what's going on?
Hi, Ryan. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in, and that is, as a commercial broker, I've been using a buyer brokerage agreement, I don't know, for the last 10 years or so, if not longer. And the way I tell my clients, my buyers, is that if the property is $1 million, and I'm talking about a commercial property here, let's say a Dollar General, if it's $1 million, and usually a lot of these big commercial firms, I'm not going to name them here, but they do not offer a fee, cooperating broker fee to the buyer's agent. So on my buyer brokerage agreement, I tell my client, if there is a buyer brokerage fee that is going to be paid by the listing broker, then we don't have to worry about this. But if there isn't, then you look at it this way, that instead of paying 1 million, you pay 3% less for the property. And that will cover my fee. And usually they're very, agreeable to that because they know it's not costing them anything. One thing I want to make clear is that we can say buyer, fees being paid by the buyers, by the buyer for the buyer representative. No, it's always the seller's, fee. It comes always out of the seller pot. And the reason for that is because the buyer is going to reduce the price. So the seller is not going to get the full price. I'm giving an example of 1 million. So that's $30,000. So you reduce the price to $970,000 to the seller, and you explain in the offer that this is the reason why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. And I've never had any problems with that. So commercial real estate is a little bit different than residential. Honestly, I don't understand residential real estate that much. Okay, but commercial real estate, the reason these big firms don't offer the buyer brokerage fee is because they think the buyer is a sophisticated buyer. It's not their first time buying such a big property. In residential, usually that's the biggest purchase that a buyer is making in their life, and that's why they need representation. In my opinion, they need more representation. But in commercial, the idea is that these people have experience, they don't need guidance, and they usually have an attorney to look over the documents. So that's the reason I always use a buyer brokerage, buyer representation agreement. Just my 2 cents.
That's AJ. That's brilliant. Thank you. Those of you who don't know AJ is a wonderful help. If you need some help on a commercial deal, he will mentor you through it or take over for you. You can refer it to him. He's a great resource. And that's a great point that you make. And I think that's great for your listing agreements. If they do say, hey, I heard we don't have to offer, well, people are going to offer you less because they're going to have to pay this. And what AJ, it's even more so in residential because AJ's talking about commercial where people have money. They can write AJ a $30,000 check, no problem. But your residential buyers don't have typically an extra 3% laying around that they want to. A lot of times the extra 3% laying around to write you a check because that's got to be cash. They can't finance that, right? Right now the seller pays it, the buyer kind of pays it. That's what AJ's kind of saying. The buyer kind of pays it now, but it comes out of the seller's money. So I would inform both your buyer and your seller like that let the sellers know, look, yeah, we don't have to offer them compensation, but they're just going to take it off the offer because they got to pay their agent. Agent's not out there working for free. So that's a great point. Thank you, AJ. Really like that. Christina.
Hi. You're like you again.
Well, I was about to go back to Levette. She took her hand down. Yes, Christina.
Yeah, I was just gonna say two things. I have a friend that he's an agent in another city, but he posted a video on TikTok, and it was just basically like encouraging people. I thought it was great because sometimes I kind of shy away from that commission discussion. I'll have it, but I'm not jumping into it. And his whole video was, hey, you need to be comfortable talking with your agent about compensation. And then he gets into, okay, if your agent is only offering, if they're this discount broker and they're doing it for, whatever percentage, that's going to translate into the marketing dollars that they're going to spend. And same thing with the buyer broker agreement. So I think it's a good thing to get ahead of it by just diving head into the conversation, not being afraid to have it, and just explaining, hey, if they're a discount brokerage, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. They're not marketing your property. And if they're not paying the other agent, what do you think is going to happen?
It's going to come out of your offer. It's going to come out of their offer to buy your property. Yeah.
And the other thing is there's a guy on TikTok that's been commenting on real estate agents' videos for years. And his comment is always the same thing. He's like, go save yourself $10,000 and go to Home Depot and get it for sale by owner sign. And somehow some agent, like some people block him. I think I blocked him. Somebody would like converse with him. And I swear to God, he said it was 2 years later. This guy's been commenting on all of his videos, the same thing. He connected him with somebody in his area, and that guy used a realtor and bought a house. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of negativity out there, but, you know, at the end of the day, and I think what you said is true. Like when I was having conversations, I think there's a lot of fear and people just don't want to talk about it. But at the end of the day, if somebody is going to ditch you, or they're not going to want to work with you, or they're going to feel like that you need to work for free or whatever, wouldn't you rather know about that up front? Like I haven't been using the buyer broker, but I'm not against it. You know, and if they're like, no, I don't want to do that, well then you know what I mean? And I'd rather work with people that want to work with me anyways.
Right. Well, Christine, there is no against it. You keep saying that, you know, both sides. There's no both sides of an argument with buyer broker. You either feel like using it or you don't. But there's definitely
Right.
positives to it. There's no negatives to it, other than you could chase off a tire kicker.
I mean, there's a lot of agents out there that are like that are against it. That's what I'm hearing from other agents, right? They don't want to use it. They feel like people aren't going to sign it. I mean, Robin spoke about a very unique situation, you know, but in most other situations, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? I'm not one of those agents that is like, no, I don't think that we should do it.
Okay. I agree with that. Mental health suggestion: stay out of comment sections on social media. For everybody, that goes for everybody in here. Robin. Robin, you have your hand up? Maybe not. We'll come back to you, Robin. Angie. Angie, you're muted.
Okay, I was just talking to myself. I haven't been 100% happy with the buyer agent agreement that is on the transaction desk and the FAR one that we use. And years ago when I started with Keller Williams, they had one that they used. And I've revised that since leaving Keller Williams and changed it to my new brokerage now with FRI. And that's the one that I've been using. And I really like it because it's a one-page document. It has like 10 steps of things I'm going to do for them, only like 3 steps about what they're going to do for me, or what their role is here. And I really prefer using that. I don't know how you feel about that. If you want everybody to use the standard one, I feel like mine is a little more clear, but it's not FAR approved. It was Keller Williams office approved, but I don't know what that means. I don't know who it went through, if their attorney designed it or who. What do you think of those?
Send it to me. I'll have other people look over it.
All right. And I've been hesitant to share it because I paid Keller Williams a lot of money for that. So.
Well, if you don't want to share it, you don't have to, but we'll get to my
No, it's fine. I'll send it to you and you can share it with whoever you want if you like to use it or if you want to just talk about it. But yeah, so I'll send it to you right now. But it's been working out good for me. And also when you're talking about the buyer agent commission agreement, I've been doing it for all these years. I've done it. I do it 99% of the time. I started off with a buyer presentation, with a buyer consultation on the whole flow of how things are going to work. And then in my slideshow, it says part of this process here is signing my buyer agreement. And then when I finish that part of the slideshow, I put it in front of them and I have them sign it. And it's not an option. I had one family who was like close friends of mine. They were like, can we think about this for a minute? Can we step outside and talk about it? And I'm like, sure, go ahead. And then they came back in and signed it. But other than that, it's just been the normal flow of my conversation. And it's just how I do things because I have been screwed over before and I don't want that to happen to me again. So if anybody, needs guidance on that, let me know. And I'll send this to Ryan and he can see if he thinks it's something we should use or if the other one's better.
Okay, great. And I want to tell you guys this too. And one thing it's always education with your buyers, particularly also your sellers, but particularly your buyers look, I'm a member of local board of realtors, the Florida Association of Realtors, National Association of Realtors, and the local MLS. There is no one in the world that can show you a property that I can't show you. So what you're telling them, there's no reason to work with anybody else, right? No matter what somebody else might say, I'll find you the best properties and blah, blah, blah. There's nobody that can do that. We've got a network of people that we have almost 1,000 agents that you guys can find off-market properties through by coming on this call right now or putting it on our Facebook page or whatever you want to say, hey, does anybody have an off-market property anywhere? Most people don't have that, but tell them that too. Say we've got a large network of agents with off-market property sometimes, and other things too that we can find you. if that's what they're interested in. I mean, obviously, there's not going to be a lot of off market, 3.2s and downtown or whatever, right? They're all going to be on the market, but you guys get the idea. Let them know there's no agent that can do anything for them that you can't do. That is a fact. So there's no reason to work with anybody else. There's no reason. They're not harming themselves by saying, I'm going to work with Angie, right? Any other questions before we go? I don't see any other hands up. Any other questions before we go? Well, this has been an incredible experience. Thank you all for coming. We're learning more and more and more about what's going on with this, guys. So we'll keep having updates on it. I didn't really get to the chat. I don't know if I need to. I saw there was chats, but I was busy. Oh, here they come. Oh gosh, there's a lot in there. Oh, you guys are talking amongst yourselves mostly. AJ's been waiting forever to talk. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. If you guys have any ideas, now's the time to, if you put something in chat, please just speak up now. There's a lot in there. Somebody just raised their hand and lowered it. Anything else you guys need before we go? You guys are doing great, by the way. We had a good month last month, believe it or not. I know it's a struggle out there. I know it is, but you guys are still producing. Lots of you guys did 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, and we had one do 7. You guys are doing great. Very happy for you guys. Keep up the good work. If there's anything I can do for you, let me know. And we'll see you next week. We'll have Rusty on next week, and we'll have a presentation on the buyer's brokerage agreement, I guess, that I can bore you guys with again for the 59th time since I've been here. But I will, and it is important, guys. And if you have a counter argument to that, I would love to hear why to not use it. But other than being afraid people won't sign it, I can't imagine that. And yes, there have been deals where somebody refused to sign it and then did end up buying something with you because people don't like to sign stuff. But there have been many, many, many more times that people have wasted your time and bought a house with somebody else, or not at all, or whatever. But if they're not trusting you enough to sign with you, they're probably not going to sign a contract with you either. Yes, Jerry.
So on the offer, is it okay to ask the seller for our broker's commission?
That I don't know yet. That's
Okay.
what I said earlier. We're going to find that out. It has not been okay before, but I think it should be okay now. And I realize the reason why it wasn't okay before, and I agree with the reason why it wasn't okay before. Although it should have always been okay on $1 listing.
What is she
But
asking?
She's asking if it's okay to write Tammy Pipkin, Florida Realty Investments 3% on the contract. And it never has been before if it's an offer on that. Clarence can do that when he's buying land. AJ can do that when he's buying buildings, right? But have we ever been able to do that? No, not on an MLS offer of compensation. In fact, I think it was an ethics violation to do that. So I don't know where that's going, Jerry. I hope that it becomes legal. I think it's great in commercial. It's fine. I mean, the seller's agreeing to something that's right there in print. I think it should be now, since you don't have to offer it on the MLS. I think that should be your alternative. And will it run foul of what your listing? So your listing broker is going to have a listing agreement that says what they can offer, and then we're going to try to change that by offering something in a contract. Well, a contract overrides that. So you might say on there you're only offering 0, but if I submit you a contract that says that you're going to pay a buyer's broker and you sign it, then you're going to pay a buyer's broker. So it'll come out of your proceeds. So there's that. The answer is I don't know. I can't wait to find out though. I'm very interested in that, and that's the way it should be. I will look into that though and find out. That is the number one question I have leaving this meeting. Any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay, guys, we will see you next week. Keep up the good work. Let me know if you need anything in the meantime. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.